Sorry, that was important. So women have always been a driving force in shaping communities, sometimes behind the scenes, oftentimes in the forefront. And in this session today, in our short session today, we will explore the unique characteristics and the strength and the opportunities that women and feminine qualities bring to create meaningful change in the world around them. Leading our session tonight is Dr. Sarah Shudmi-Wortman. Sarah, you can wave. She's the founder and CEO of the Varda Institute, and whose community building approach has really become a synonym for building resilient communities around the world. So Sarah, the floor is yours.
So hi everyone, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you. And as Maya said, I hope, and I really believe in it, that our gathering together will give a little bit of hope, because we will see the connection between women and collective actions in the sphere of community. But more than that, we will see how much we can do in order to enable more women to take part and to bring the women way how to behave and how lead things to our surrounding and to our communities. So I want to start, first of all, from a little bit of statistics that shows something about what's happening in the world about women volunteering. And the data that I'm bringing you is from the United Nations. The United Nations actually published 1 in 3 years a report about volunteering in the world, not just regarding women, but in general. And the last one was in 2022. The next one is supposed to be this year. They started to work about it already. And what we learned there, that 57% of the global volunteering in the world is women. And this number is even growing when you see, when it's not formal, not institutionalized at all. Another thing that you can see out of these numbers, that women give in general, in average, 3.5 hours per week more than men. And what is really incredible, that 70% of women volunteers commit to long-term service. It means more than a year. The numbers are even more outstanding when you look about this different spheres that women are acting in or volunteering or involved in. So you can see the 75% of in education volunteering is women. In hospital, they are the minority. In neighborhood projects, as leaders are women. And 55 of all the initiatives in the communal level comes from women. And even in our modern area, postmodern area, when we talk about the online activity, even there, when we talk about initiating these online support group, we'll find 70% of them are done by women. And 60%, maybe it will be surprising, of community digital campaigns are led by women. But that's, we can see also in Israel. I just brought you like a very new one. Ruach Tova, which is one of the main volunteer organization in Israel, published a report in December 24. And as you can see the number, how many new volunteers added. Out of this number, 72% of them, 2 months after the war, were women. But it's not just about the numbers, it's also about the content. And I chose to bring you few examples for actions that were done by women all over the world. I brought you like 5 of them. And I decided to bring you examples that are not just coming from places that women are educated enough or have the ability to do that, but also from places in the world that women are considered completely underground with their privilege and with their rights and things and their abilities. So the first one is India. Talking about India, Kathleen is here. We spent, I think, 20 years ago, it was only the beginning of what they call the microcredit groups, the self-help financial groups that were established by Muhammad Yunus, who got his Nobel Prize for that in 2006. And out of these groups in India, for example, now 90% of the participants of these self-help groups are women. In one of the networks, we have more than 2 million women that are participated in that. And what is really amazing looking at that by this collective saving that they actually created, they were enabled to build schools and to actually enrich and make it much better the life of the people in the all communities and not just for their own families. Another example is Kenya. In Kenya, we have what we call the Green Belt. The Green Belt Association started in 1977, and the idea was by a woman, Nigeria, and what she did, she realized that the Sahara Desert is conquering more and more areas from the villages who were having their life from agriculture. And since then, more than 30 countries around Africa adopted that, and more than 51 million trees were planted in that, what we call the Green Belt, and 900,000 women were participated in Kenya doing that work. Another place is Sweden, and in Canada, you can put Canada also, we can talk about this. In Sweden, there is a new initiative that it's already 15 years, not so new, but it was a new initiative. And the idea was how to build volunteerism to the whole family as a unit, not just for the women. And the women were the one to push that. Another thing we see in Sweden and in Canada is organization that calls women, adopt women. And the idea is that in Sweden, it's about women that has experience that actually escort young women from different backgrounds. And in Canada, it's completely around immigrants, how people who are born native are actually adopt immigrant women that are coming, and actually together they build like a network of women from different kinds of culture background and different levels and status in the country, so they can actually affect the whole area. Scandinavia created volunteer neighborhood centers that will allow women to give whatever they can and volunteer close to their home, so they won't have to go more far away, and it will enable them actually to do this work. Looking at that, I can say from our point of view as the Varda Institute, and you can see in the pictures, in many of these places we were active and gave part of it, and working in the Global South in a few areas, and not just there, all over the world. When we invite people to communal action, always the women are the first one to come and to take part of it. I want to just put one moment, something about Israel. In Israel, I just put just two examples. One of them is and that we were involved in both of them. One of them is one of our student, Tamar Meilbaum, that actually created in Israel, like she called it in Israel, mothers that don't hoard, don't collect things and keep it to themselves, especially mother for newborn after their children grow up, and actually how to create a network of sharing economy. And she created in the last 7 years, 244 groups worldwide in Israel and in Israel and Israelis around the world that involved 144,000 women around them. And another project that we started a few years ago, and it's happened in many places in Israel, is mom to mom, what we call mother to mother. And it's actually creating a network of women that help new mothers that their families are not close to them. And all during the first year, they enter their houses. And what is so amazing in this program, that these women that were helped by other women, after they finished this first year, they found themselves wants to give it to other women. So when we see this effect, and we see it all over helping in numbers and in the content, there is a big question, what is actually, how we can actually explain it, not just from the intellectual idea, but actually to see how we can actually elevate it and to contribute because we see the effect of it of other parts of the society. So what I want to try to answer now is to talk a little bit about what we call the community approach of community building that we in the Varda Institute are leading. And on the other hand, to talk about the characteristic of women actions that we know from the literature and from research all over the world, and then try to combine them and see after that, actually how we can elevate it and make it more powerful for men and for women. So the first thing I want to start is to start with community as an association. What is so amazing when we work all over the world and we ask people what is community for them, we see that community in many aspects is what we call in the academic world a value term. Value term means that when you use it, people mean something good about it. They mean that when they want to say this group is like a community for me, they mean that this group has for them a sense of home, belonging, acceptance, love, security, closeness, warmth. So in the Varda Institute, when we talk about the community building approach, or as we call it, culture of belonging in organization, we are actually take the strength of community, the fact that it's based on equality, partnership, and participation, reciprocity, and trust. And through that, it can actually fulfill its inherent potential to its members by serves as a source of personal identity, by strengthening both individual and collective capability, and especially by fostering relationship built on understanding and participation, responsibility, and competence. And we developed in the Varda Institute, you can see completely how it's, and we'll see in a minute, how it's so connected to women action and the way women works in the world, that we know that strong communities are communities that people feel, people, groups, individuals feel that they belong, they matter. When I realize that my community, the group that I'm in, is saying to me, wow, the things you are bringing are so powerful for us. We couldn't be the same without you. Then I feel a sense of belonging that we define like being part of and feel that it became really part of who I am. And I have the trust. Trust is that feeling that I can bring myself and be myself and bring everything I have, my opinions, my ideas, my abilities. And I'm committed. I feel responsible for this place. And because of everything I just said, I feel really proud to say I'm that. I'm part of it. That's become part of that identity. But more powerful from that is to see the measurements of behavior. When we have strong communities, we'll see these actions or behaviors that people are bringing. They are coming more, they are giving more, they give money, they give time, they give their abilities, they want to work with other people, they want to collaborate, and especially they dare to bring their initiatives. Now, looking about that, let's look for a minute about what the researchers and what the academic knowledge in the world talks about characteristics of women's leadership. It's not just leadership in the meaning of management, it's also about actions. You don't have to be in a leadership position, but everything you do as a woman looks like that in many cases. And again, as a generalization we do when we compare how women work and how men works. And by the way, we today in our flexible gender reality, it doesn't have to go, we can easily see how different people from different genders can adapt, can grow, can learn how actually to learn how to do it in more feminine way. So let's see what this feminine way says. One is, oh, wait, no, go back. Thanks. So first of all is flexibility and adaptability. The corona, the virus period, remember, a million years ago, showed that companies and organizations that women led were more successful to go through the crisis. Another thing, and maybe it's because women bring high emotional intelligence to read the situation and be able to act in it. Women are more open and inclusive in communication with different people from different kinds, with different abilities. And they are more acceptance of different barriers that people have in not being able to achieve certain things. Women are gathering and call other women for action through value-based management. They actually help people to feel that they're a part of something bigger that's really going to do good in the world. And women will work much more collaboration and team and work in teams and groups and enforce it and encourage people to work in team and force. And another thing that is very centered in women action is that they are very, very focused and their employee or their partner's well-being. They will ask, how are you? Where are you? Is it okay? I want to know more about who you are and what you are. So we talked about numbers. We talked about fields of interest. Now let's talk a little bit about how it looks about patterns of women's vis-a-vis men's engagement. So it's really interesting to see that women, I think the pictures we chose are really emphasize it. Women, wait, just a minute. Women will do it in a non-formal way. We'll in a minute explain what it is. And men will do it in a much formal way. So now we can go to the table and see stuff. You can move it to the table. And we can see that actually women will engage women by their relationship and the connection. You know that we talk in the world about two motivation that takes people out of their houses. You know, in social change and in community engagement, you always, synagogues, schools, whatever, civic organization will always ask, what will bring people out of their home? And we talk about two motivation. One motivation is for something. Men usually will be involved in more organized, established one. They will go out of their houses to achieve a mission, to achieve something that they want to achieve, and they do it by formal organization. They will call people by their talent, and they will motivate them by the cause. In many cases, the members that are coming are like a tool to achieve the missions. And women the other motivation is to go out of the house for being with someone. So women will engage other women by socialization, by influence, by using the personal connection of calling them to be together and do it not just because of the cause, but because of the people who are doing it. And the motivation will be the actual partnership that are growing out of it. And the academic world, you won't believe it even, they adapt from Yiddish two words, the smooching and macher. And the macher is what we call the man action, and schmoozing is what you call in English, but it's all came from Yiddish, is actually how you integrate and how you socialize, and you actually call people through that. So if I want to combine and ask the question, actually we gave the answer. The result is that feeling of sense of belonging. The action is to do it in the feminine way, because the feminine way looks at the person, their abilities, and they call them in creating a very safe environment that allow people to bring who they are in a safe way. And that way encourage people that sense of belonging. So it's not wonder that during the history, we can see how this connection between bringing my ability, understanding what is happening, and actually engage people through that, solving even local challenges, actually, wait just a minute, transform itself into a bigger solution. So I want to start from quickly, just to show you how powerful it is from the history. Let's take the ancient world. We have the midwives. The story of Shifra and Pua in our Bible could be so much like a metaphor to what we are talking about. The fact that women weren't not just helping the woman that was giving birth, that actually they were the ones who were considered the one who give the emotional support, not just for the women, for the whole family and the whole community. The story of Shifra Umpura that actually saved one child, one family. Actually, we know that they did a revolutionary underground, and there are in our literature and legend that these midwives actually saved the Jewish people in Egypt. But that you can see the effect, like a metaphor, the effect that we'll see in other stories from other cases, that women start from local issue, local challenge, and it became a policy. In the medieval monasteries, the nuns were the one who created in the monasteries during the medieval area safe places for people who were the underground, those people who were neglected and were abused by the collective society, found their houses in the monasteries. And we have changed, like of the Sister of Mercy, who actually in Canada, in United States and in England, build not just hospital, but also schools for different people, and created like a safe place for these people who are after that became like a policy. I wanted to put a big light on two women. One of them is Octavia Hill in Britain, that actually was the first one to create the public house policy. Again, she started from a very personal background. Her father lost all his money, and from being a very rich family, they needed to be very poor. And she realized how it's important not just to give, but the way you give and the infrastructure you create. So she based the public housing on three concepts that until today we are following it. The first one was with respect, that the houses will be respectable. They won't look like the backyard of a place because it's for poor people. Another thing she said, wait, just let's go back. Another thing she said is that it has to be with green, it has to look beautiful with parks around it. The third thing she said, it has to be the responsible of the poor about their housing. They have to give something in order, and that you don't just build buildings, you actually create a whole infrastructure of communal activities and engagement and organizations. So it will be that you create a whole community and not just building buildings. Another woman that I want to put the light on comes from Chicago. We have a Chicago members here, and Jane Addams, and she fought for women's rights, and her main argument was that women knows the best their communities, and they know the best what will be the best way to save this community and to take them ahead. She built the Huell houses. I didn't know that until I learned it, and that gave actually a whole holistic approach of training, of collective action, of communal, not just services, but opportunities for people not just to get, but also to give. And she also won a prize Nobel for that. And the last one, historic point that I want to stress, and you see the picture is of the perfect woman, is the post-World War period. I want to talk a minute about that because it has a lot of experience about our modern volunteering as women. During World War II, women were very active and took a lot of position economically and in management, in organization and factories, because men were in the war. And then men came back. The feminist movement relates to that people as the dark times in the modern area, because what happened then after men came back, the suburbs outside of the big cities started to establish all the electronic things that we know, the refrigerator, the oven, and how the feminist movement, very sorry to say always that women were locked back in the houses, looking very good. All the energy was about the kitchen. They looked excellent. They could do everything. She looked amazing. Even she cooked and she took care about the kids. And all this energy took out the women outside of their houses in their neighborhood, in their local communities, working in the churches, in the local schools, and started that civic organizations of communal volunteering in your houses and around the neighborhood by calling women to women and starting this massive activity that we see until today. And now let's look forward. We know from numbers in the world that you can do a differentiation between those countries that students were just a minute, that that women are more active than in other places, more volunteering. And we know that the Scandinavian countries has the highest level of volunteering of women. Now, I want to talk about, and if we want to increase, let's look a little bit about the barriers and the challenges that are there in order to help women to be more engaged. Now, it's important for me to emphasize that we are talking about the community level. So I want to talk a little bit about what are these actually barriers that don't allow that. It's also in the national and worldwide, but I want to invite each one of us to look about the local barriers and to see what we can do with them after that. So let's first of all understand them. So first of all, economic challenges. We know that women earn less than men, and look about the abilities that doesn't allow women to go out. Number two is traditional gender expectation. We work in communities in Israel and around the world that people are supposed to work in several or in certain areas, volunteer and be involved. In the other areas, they are not allowed to be, or they are not invited to be. The third one that women talk about is the burden of what we call the third shift. Working at home, raising kids, and then going out and volunteer. How, we will see in a minute, how we can, first of all, see these obstacles, then think how to deal with them. Another one is structural and cultural barriers. We were working ourselves in communities that working in community is actually considered something that is low than managing other or dealing with the serious things. So there are women that are not even allowed to be in certain frameworks. And these frameworks, if we look about lack of recognition, are considered less important. Oh, community action, you mean that gathering that people are doing just a little bit nice to each other? Okay, that's for women. For us, the serious part is to deal about the budget and how can you do it moving. And the last one that we see a lot is the gap between also the responsibility and the authority these women has. We work in many of the Moshavim, and we can see that in some of them, the work that is considered communal work on the level is not rewarded. For us, it doesn't matter if it's paid or it's volunteer. We talk about involvement. And we see that these kinds of involvement that are considered more feminine, considered less important, and less resources are for that, for the action itself and for the women that are working in that or are acting in that. So if we want to talk about ourselves and what we can do in our communities, so we can, first of all, allow more women to be involved, second, to make it easier, and third, to teach other people, men, how to work in a feminine work that allow more people to feel belong, invited, include, and pushed actually to bring their strength. So there are some things that we found ourselves working in the communities and help these communities actually to push themselves and go through that, what we call the glass ceiling. So the next slide, Taf, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So first of all, and I can give few examples for everything, for one of the everything things that we are just talking about. One of them is creating network of women. One of the examples that we know really good from the Jewish world is that women many times feel guilty, or they feel the money is not theirs. So what they did in many of the federation, they built, and women started it, the foundations of women foundation in the federation that actually allow people in their network to contribute money and to give money to feminine causes as they understand it. Another way is to integrate the family, and we saw it. It's not a miracle that in Sweden that actually started the family, to integrate families of the women who are volunteer as part of the volunteering, actually enable more women, because it wasn't the third shift anymore. It all suddenly became one of the second shift. So being with the kids and the family by doing things together. And Sweden brought amazing ideas like planting trees, taking care of animals and things like that. Another thing we can do is developing flexibility of engaging model. I just gave you an example about to do it closely to the home, so women won't have to go far away. And always there are causes of volunteering around us, how we can do it more flexible, not to do it in certain hours, to do it in a way that women can bring their assets, and doesn't have to be another knowledge that they have to bring. You can use whatever they bring in order to do that. Another thing that we talk about, and I want to talk about both of them, is first, how we combine authority and responsibility. How we say, and when we work with these communities, we always teach them how you cannot give only responsibility without authority. And many of these women are active and doing so much in what we call community engagement, but they don't have the authority to decide about the decision. Even they are depending in the local culture about the budget that they want, about the decision if it's connected to other parts of the community and things like that. And to transform the communal work, not just as a work that is feminine, but also that is invited all the other parts of the society. And we are not talking just about bringing all these women and put them on the stage and say thank you, which is good, but it's not enough. I want to give you one example that we did in one of the Arab villages in Israel. It was an Arab village, and I just want to finish with and show how powerful it was by the way we did it. We worked in a Bedouin village that the tribal system, every election brought to killing people from each other. People were murdered by that. And women, because they are not considered a part of the tribe in the sense that they are not political figures because they weren't allowed to be part of it, we could do the work with them in how to create one community for all these tribes. And during the Ramadan, they created a happening for all the children of all the tribes, and the head of the village wanted to speak, and we told him, you cannot speak. It's going to be only the women, because if you speak, it will belong to one of the tribe, and we wanted to be collectively engaged for everybody to be invited. So only the women stood on the stage. They spoke as the one who organized it, with the authority to decide what will be who will come, who will speak, and how it will be. And this group was able to create a sense of collective, the beginning of sense of collective community. And that's just an example how it has to look itself out in the public sphere. The last thing, Asaf. So before we say that, wait, don't push the other button. We decided, first of all, you see the sign of the hostages, why we want to hope for the return of the hostages. And I may say, we want to pray for the finish of the war and the people who were hurt on both sides, all over the world, and especially in our area, in both sides, all the people who were suffering because of this terrible war. And we decided to finish our session with words that was said by a man, because we think that men that understand the role of women has power, at least as we have to help ourselves. And because we want to strengthen that feminine doesn't belong only to women. So we have the responsibility to actually to change the world the way we see it. So I want to use the words of Barack Obama to finish and say, change will not come if we wait for some other person, or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Salome. I think you opened new ways of thinking about things that we just don't always take the time to think about, and put in perspective our important role. And as I think Naama wrote in the chat, look at this room, and 99% of the people around the room at least appear to be women. So really, thank you very, very much. And at this time, I'd like to share that, what we did this evening or this morning or noon is not our typical sort of meeting. We wanted an open Zoom. We realized that International Women's Day was coming near, and how often we overlook the important role that women play in community. But in the day-to-day, we actually support organizations in a wide range of intervention, and we do a lot of different things, from one-time lectures and workshops on many different topics. Just to give you an example of a few: overcoming diverse opinions within communities, or how can we shift from providing services to building partnerships with others, with lay leaders or whoever it may be. We also lead sessions in the business world about how to help organizations strengthen a culture of belonging, and through different professional communities which business organizations run these days, and as well as many, many other topics depending on the different challenges that are defined with us or in front of us. Most importantly, we use our mission-based and structured approach to lead deep change processes. That's where the impact happens. That's where we can change the world. And we support organizations and leaders in building resilient communities over long-term processes, strengthening the strength of community, building different organizational frameworks, and strengthening that culture of belonging. So if you or anyone you know would like that kind of support and feel that the challenges you're encountering can be overcome by any of these things, we really look forward to hearing from you, collaborating, and, as we like to say, making together matter. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing or seeing you in different spaces. If there are any questions, we can take a quick question. We have the Hebrew session coming up in 15 minutes, but we can still take a quick question if there are any questions. And if not, thank you and goodbye.
Bye. Bye.